What's up, investors? It's the Russians yet. When something explodes inside the police training center in Russia, the first instinct of the authorities is always the very same. Minimize, reframe, blur the edges, and move on as quickly as possible. Everyone will forget anyway. Roof fire, training incident, technical malfunction, anything except what it actually was. And what happened in Syktyvkar in the Republic of Komi was not just an accident. It was a snapshot of a system eating itself from the inside. A police academy, cadets inside, renovations underway, a stun grenade detonates. Then a gas cylinder explodes, smoke pours out of windows, injured trainees are dragged along the roads like sacks of potatoes, at least 9 people hurt, 4 in critical condition, and 200 evacuated while officials calmly issue press releases about internal reviews. Nothing else but this. But the explosion itself is only the surface. Beneath it sits a much bigger story, one that the Kremlin desperately does not want to say out loud. That Russia is fighting a massive war abroad while slowly dismantling its ability to police itself at home. The same state that prides itself on being a police state is now running out of police. Officers are leaving, stations are empty, entire villages have no law enforcement presence at all. And the people being trained in places like Syktyvkar are not preparing for a stable career. They're being simply fed into a collapsing system that no longer protects citizens, no longer protects its own personnel, and absolutely nowhere increasingly cannot even guarantee basic safety during a training session. So today, let's talk about all of this. Not just the explosion, but what it reveals about the Russian police, the war, and the quiet unraveling happening far away from the front lines. On paper, the professional training center of the Interior Ministry in Syktyvkar is supposed to be one of the safest places imaginable. Controlled environment, regulated equipment, cadets under supervision. This is where new rank-and-file officers are trained, where traffic cops, detectives, investigators, and district officers take their oaths. Not a frontline trench, not a chemical plant, not a mine. And yet, during a daytime training session, something detonates inside the assembly hall. Officially, it was just a stun grenade. Well, then conveniently a gas cylinder also exploded. Renovations work was happening, which always helps to spread responsibility even further. Then fire spreads across 340 square meters, windows are filled with smoke, people in work clothes are filmed dragging the injured out along construction scaffolding. Absolute total chaos. As a result, 4 cadets end up in critical conditions, others are hospitalized, one refuses treatment, and immediately the language shifts. The first thing they try to do is to cover things up. The Interior Ministry calls it a roof fire. An internal review is launched, investigators open a criminal case for negligence, which in Russia basically is a code for someone low-ranking will be blamed, and nothing structural will ever change. What matters here is not whether the grenade was mishandled, improperly stored, or used during training. No, what matters is how normal this has become. Russian institutions are increasingly dangerous to the people inside them, first of all. Poor maintenance, overcrowding, improvised solutions, equipment used beyond safety limits. Cadets training in buildings under renovation while explosives are present. Security code, anyone, I guess? This is not professionalism, this is immaturity mixed with negligence, driven by a state that has redirected money, attention, and manpower elsewhere. And then there is another layer. These injured people were not seasoned officers, no, they were just simple cadets, trainees, the future workforce of a police system already bleeding personnel. Every injury, every death, every scandal like this further discourages people from joining. Would you join, guys? No, the message is simple and unspoken. Even before you can hit the streets, if you have a chance, the system can already grind you down, and the state will do absolutely nothing about it. So no wonder the number of policemen stalls at best, reduces at worst. But guess what? All the things we just spoke about are just the tip of the iceberg. Even worse things are happening behind the scenes that nobody in Russia talks about. But as for us, guys, let's talk about them in our next chapter. Here is the irony that would be funny if it was not so dangerous. Russia has more police officers per capita than almost any other major country, nearly twice as many as the European Union, 2.5 times more than the United States. On paper it looks like a fortress of internal control, but in reality it's just emptying out. Since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine began, more than 9,000 police officers have left their posts. Not retired, not transferred. Gone. And according to independent investigations, 36% of legally mandated police positions are now vacant. That's not a staffing issue, as a systemic failure. Some stations are partially empty, others are almost completely abandoned. In certain regions, one officer is doing the work that 2, 5 or even 7 used to do. For example, in parts of Leningrad, Oblast, Leningrad region, a single policeman now covers what 7 once handled. In rural areas, the situation is even worse. Entire villages have no police presence at all. Zero. If something happens, nobody comes. So obviously crimes go unregistered, disputes escalate, domestic violence, theft, fraud, and assaults simply vanish into statistics that are never written down. And this is not speculation. Criminologists inside Russia are openly saying that the collapse of basic policing is underway already. But why is this even happening? Well, money, overwork, burnout, police salaries stagnated while military pay exploded. I mean, when the state started offering contract soldiers sign-up bonuses of 3, 4, 5 billion rubles, plus monthly payments, debt forgiveness, benefits, well, police officers noticed. Wouldn't they? Wouldn't you? Standing on a street corner for low pay, endless paperwork and public hatred suddenly looked irrational compared to the army. So many of them left. Their empty wallets became the biggest motivation. The result is absurd. The Kremlin can still repress protests because repression is handled by specialized units, Rosgvardia, FSB and riot police, but everyday policing, regular policemen is collapsing. And that is the kind of collapse that people feel immediately. I mean, surely that's unsustainable, right? Let's see how long it can last and what potentially can happen in our next chapter. Now let's talk about the future Russia is actively walking into. The war will not last forever, and when it ends, hundreds of thousands of veterans will come home. Many traumatized, many armed, at least mentally, many returning to poor regions with no jobs, no supports and, well, guess what now? No police. According to polls, almost 40% of Russians already expect law and order to deteriorate when veterans return. And, well, we spoke about it in previous videos, they are right to be afraid. Because there will not be enough officers to handle disputes, prevent crime or intervene early. Small conflicts will turn violent, old grudges will explode, alcohol will do the rest. The state knows this, and its response is not to rebuild professional policing. No, instead standards are being lowered even further. Recruitment is being crushed, foreign nationals are being pulled into law enforcement roles, and most dangerously, the Kremlin is increasingly tolerating or even cooperating, I would say, with independently organized militias and community patrols. I mean, literally someone can say, I'm a policeman, here's my people, and they say, okay, do your job. So these are groups with their ideologies, loyalties, agendas, groups that answer to absolutely no clear chain of command. I mean, this is how states slide into something much uglier than simple authoritarianism. When official institutions weaken, informal violence fills the gaps. When the police cannot respond, people arm themselves. Firearms are already being used more frequently by civilians. Vigilantism is creeping in, and once that genie is out of the bottle, it, well, does not go back quietly. The explosion of Syktyvkar fits perfectly into this picture. Training centers underfunded, cadets injured, investigations framed narrowly to avoid broader questions. All of this while the state prepares for post-war reality it is structurally incapable of managing. Here's the part nobody on Russian state television will ever say out loud. Most police officers know exactly where this is heading. They feel it every day. They are underpaid, hated by the public, used as tools against pensioners, activists and teenagers, ordered to beat people they sympathize with, at least inside their minds, some of them. They're also being sent to guard occupied Ukrainian cities and then quietly reminded that if needed, they can too be sent to the frontlines. Being a policeman in Russia is not a respected profession. It is tolerated at best, despised at worst. The salary is below average unless you take bribes, and if you don't take them, well, survival becomes a challenge. This also creates massive corruption, which further erodes trust. And so most officers adapt the only way they can. They just do bare minimum. Just enough not to get fired, just enough to avoid trouble, certainly not enough to provide real public safety. And looming over all of this is a memory that the Kremlin would prefer everyone forget. Prigozhin's mutiny. When armed men rolled towards Moscow, the police did not defend the regime, they did nothing, they just stood aside, they watched. And many learned a lesson. When the real test comes, loyalty is optional, and, as we all saw, it is not that much punishable. Most Russian police officers understand that at some point they will face a choice. Stand with a collapsing regime that treats them as disposable tools, or side with the people who have always hated and feared them. Well, neither options are comfortable, both are dangerous, and that knowledge sits quietly in every understaffed station and half-empty academy. Eventually they will have to make a decision. The Kremlin built a police state designed to suppress dissent and to protect citizens. And now, as the war drains manpower, money and legitimacy, even that police state is falling apart. The explosion in Syktyvkar was accidental, but the collapse it symbolizes is absolutely real. Well, there you have it, guys. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel for more news like this. If you wish to support our work and join our private Telegram group, you can do so by becoming a Patreon member or YouTube channel member. You will receive invitation link immediately. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.